Currently, I am working on a Team Fortress 2 map that uses vscript to add brand new weapons into the game. I've got some of them pretty far in so far, but I've still got a long way to go before I can get everything working as I want it to. For now, I'll showcase my current progress on getting some of these weapons working. First off, I've got the boomstick, which is a single-fire primary for Scout. It has only one bullet in the clip, and it shoots out a ton of bullets in a wide spread. Using the single bullet shot, you can either start a fight and then finish it off with your secondary and melee, or you can start with the secondary and melee first and use the boomstick itself as a finisher. In order to encourage using it for combos, the weapon has a faster weapon switch speed, so that you can more easily switch over to your pistol or to your melee weapon. It also has the additional stat of reducing your cap speed to 1, and every time you get a kill with this weapon, it increases it by 1, up to 5 times. So it kind of acts as a snowball weapon as well. Currently it does not have a model set for it, and I wanted to set it to gib players on kill, but I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. Since it deals a lot of damage in a single burst, it can only deal mini crits instead of normal crits. The cap gun is a secondary weapon for Scout, Pyro, and Engineer that acts kinda like a revolver. The weapon is pretty much a glass soda bottle turned into a gun. The gun works by building up pressure from the soda inside and using it to shoot the cap off to hurt enemies, acting as a form of projectile secondary as opposed to hit scan. In order to fire it, you hold down left click in order to charge up the fizz, and then release to shoot the cap off, with the charge time increasing both the projectile speed and its damage. However, if you hold it down for too long, the gun explodes in your hand, removes all of the ammo in your clip, and deals damage to you. I haven't implemented that yet, though. The weapon only has 4 shots in a clip, but it reloads its entire clip at once, albeit a little slowly. The function for the Force of Nature's reload only functions with scatterguns, so I had to rebuild this entire reload whole clip code from scratch, using a timer that only seems to work with Engineer's reload for some reason. The weapon itself feels pretty fun to play with, but I still gotta tweak the numbers in order for it to feel more viable compared to the other secondary weapons the classes have. The Lance is a melee weapon for Scout that reduces his primary ammo by 50% and increases his secondary recharge speed by 80%. Now the purpose of this is to kind of create a Scout subclass, just because I thought it would be a fun thing to do. Scout doesn't really get those. It would have a slower swing speed and a larger range akin to the Demo Man swords, and pressing right click would cause you to lunge forward and deal a bunch of damage to whoever you ram into with your sword at the cost of a much longer switch off speed afterwards. It's overall a pretty simple weapon. Alright, here's one I'm really excited to talk about. This one is the Ankle Biter. Now, for a long time, people have wanted an expansion to the Fat Scout subclass for Heavy, where he uses a shotgun and melee weapons and runs around like a scout. I had a funny idea for how I could actually make a primary weapon that does something for this, without giving up the identity of Heavy like using a minigun at all, so I thought, what could be funnier than taking the giant Russian man and turning him into a little gnome baby that runs around and punches people in the dick. And with that, I have created a minigun that shrinks Heavy down to 60% his normal size. He gains a speed boost, but loses 75 max health, and his minigun functions slightly weaker, but in exchange he's got more base mobility. This is a fun weapon. Not only is it really funny, but the size difference actually helps Heavy hide in more obvious spots that other players normally would not be able to do because of the default player size. The size itself, while being an upside, is also a downside because Heavy does actually have some knockback vulnerability now, because he technically weighs less. Of course, I still gotta tweak the numbers and everything, but I'm feeling good about this. The chain gun is a very simple primary for Heavy. Instead of being a never-ending stream of bullets that destroys your enemies and turns them into Swiss cheese, it's instead a super shotgun that you have to rev up in order to fire. I think the damage on it might be a bit too high currently, and it's possible to spam click the fire button to instantly shred anybody in front of you. So I definitely need to tinker with this a little bit more. The spring crank gun is another simple minigun modification, allowing you to hold the reload key in order to wind up the spring inside of the minigun. Doing so will allow it to fire faster, as your firing speed is now based on the wind meter. The fuller it is, the faster it'll fire. However, it fires 70% slower than the normal minigun. Getting the meter filled all the way up will allow it to fire 30% faster than the normal minigun. So you'll usually want to make sure that it's always filled up so that you don't get caught with your pants down and end up losing a fight with another heavy. It does seem very underpowered at first, but I think the ability to have a 30% faster firing speed at any point that you want could... Listening to myself read out the stats again, I'm starting to realize at 4 a.m. that these stats might not be very balanced. Oh well, I'll fix it later after playtesting. After I get some sleep. The drive-by is a movement-based minigun for heavy. Whenever you rev the weapon, you will begin moving in the direction you were facing when you first started revving the weapon. You will move at a very high speed, at least you're supposed to. For some reason you only move at the correct speed when you're in the air. I don't know why. Anyway, it constantly pushes you forward, and you can use this movement to quickly make your way back up to the front line, or to move behind cover very quickly to shoot people while you're moving between walls and stuff, as is the name for it, drive-by. You're drive-by shooting everybody. This makes positioning difficult though, as you will always move forward when you're firing whether you want to or not. You can't manually hold yourself in place unless you manage to put yourself up against a wall or something. It won't be easy to shoot off the side of a porch or anything. It also has a faster rev and unrev speed so that you can easily unrev in order to change the direction that you're moving with the drive-by. Finally, the last weapon that I have any sort of decent progress on is the Self-Medicator for Medic. It is a syringe gun that lets you gain Uber on hit, and if you have full Uber while you're holding the weapon out, you can press right click to use your own Uber effects on yourself. So if you've got a stock Medigun, you can give yourself Uber. If you've got a crit screet, you can make your gun shoot crit syringes. If you've got Vaccinator, then you can give yourself a Vaccinator bubble for whatever vaccination stat your gun is set to. And we'll have special interactions with the other Mediguns that I'm also working on. It's also got increased accuracy and increased projectile speed, so it feels better to use because the syringes as a medic feel like crap to play with. The only bad thing about this weapon currently as it stands is, well, first off, I don't know how to actually make the syringes more accurate or move faster, but I also haven't come up with a downside for the weapon. I haven't been able to think of anything good. When I first came up with the weapon, I was thinking you wouldn't be able to see teammate health and that you would build Ubers slower with your actual Mediguns, but that would just suck. That would make you not want to play Medic at all because the only ways to build Uber are super slow. The gun builds Uber super slow as part of the design, but it would also make using your Medigun suck real bad. So I'm probably going to have to figure something out for that later in development. That about sums up most of my progress for things. I've got some other things I'm trying to work on, like getting custom weapon models working and giving the view models proper animations, but it's a lengthy process and I have a full-time job. But hopefully I'll see some more progress on this as time goes by and I learn more about how vscript works in TF2. I've also got to work on the actual map that would encompass this vscript, because without the map there's no point in me doing any of this. Other than for fun, of course. So I think the next time I do a devlog for this, I'll probably show some actual rough framework for the map itself. And maybe I can record the devlog at a time when I shouldn't be asleep.